Hi there. Okay, so thanks for watching. Today I'm going to talk about an interesting film from 1988 called Munchies. Now, not many people have heard of this film before, with good reason probably. In fact, the first time I heard of this film was perhaps just a few months ago. Uh, just to preface this review, and um, just for the sake of having a brief cinematic history lesson, in 1988, a well-known film called Gremlins was released, and shortly thereafter, many horror producers, or at least producers involved in the horror industry, thought that it would be a good idea to capitalize off of the success of the Gremlins. So what they did was they made a whole bunch of films that were basically knockoffs of Gremlins. You may have heard of some of these. You have the Ghoulies series. To a lesser extent, you have Critters, and some others. One of the least notable knockoffs is Munchies, the film that I'm going to talk about. So, if you are familiar with Gremlins, then the plotline of Munchies is going to sound very familiar to you. Basically, there is one single critter who lands on Earth. There are two primary characters, the main character who's about 20-something, and his father. They find these creatures or the creature, when he crashes on Earth. They bring him home. He starts kind of causing chaos around the house. They end up, he somehow gets chopped in half, and then he replicates. So basically, if you chop these critters, or if you chop these munchies in half, they end up replicating, and then you have four times as many munchies. So they replicate into four munchie-like critters. So every time you kill a munchie, you have four additional munchies. Now this may sound very familiar to the Gremlins. Two gremlins, of course, with the gremlins, if you toss them in water, then they would replicate. And this is essentially identical, and in fact, when they end up replicating, the behavior of the munchies is also very much the same as in the case of the gremlins. The munchies run around town, cause a lot of chaos, are extraordinarily horny, and constantly make strange comments about wanting to engage in sexual acts with various women throughout the running time. So, if you think that this film sounds really interesting and really entertaining, as I did, you may be curious about it and may want to watch it. I would recommend against that, actually, for a few reasons. Firstly, I was actually leery of this when I first sought out the film. It's actually rated PG. Now, Gremlins was rated PG too, but it had, I think, a different target audience than Munchies. I thought that Munchies was going to be more of a straight-up horror film, but really, Munchies was more offbeat and more outrageous in a comedic kind of way than Gremlins could ever have hoped to be. And this might be a good thing in some people's eyes, but in my view, they took it to a level that it just should not be taken to. The level of absurdity in these characters' actions and of the munchies themselves, it was just so beyond justified that there's no possible way that you could think that anything that the characters or anyone did in this film could be construed as reasonable or rational behavior. The characters were just completely crazy. None of their actions made any sense. The munchies themselves, they are just roaming around the town and causing chaos while seemingly being completely invincible to everything that these people are doing, because people are so foolish and their actions are so nonsensical that there's just there's no logic to anything that's going on in the film. The behavior, the continuity, really anything. It didn't make any sense at all. And again, you might think that this would be fun, but I just found it to be sort of overwhelming, and that never happens with me. Like, when I'm watching movies, I usually can get a kick out of these kinds of things, but the way that Munchies went about doing this, it just, I don't know, it left me feeling kind of cold and just kind of stale. I was not happy after watching this movie. I just kind of was shaking my head in disgust. So that's all I really have to say about Munchies. I don't recommend this film, save for maybe a few people I may recommend it to. Sorry about that. Something happened with my audio at the end. Anyway, what I was going to say was that I do have a new rating system, which I am calling the SCAR scale. So very similar to the star scale, except with scars. So yes, very clever on my part, I know. But anyway, out of 5 scars, I rate Ghoulies 2 scars. And I would not recommend it to really very many people, as I mentioned before. So thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more reviews. I will see you later.